to the Coastside Fire Protection District Special Board Meeting Finance Committee. Roll call, please. Chief Cox.
Yes, President Burke
Yes, here.
and Director Cockrell.
Here.
All right.
Also present, Chief Armstrong and Chief Cox. Thank you very much. We have 3 items on the agenda today, and let's take them a little bit out of order. And, first of all, let's go to discuss District CalPERS liability. We have, as been sent to us by CalPERS each year, and we've had analyzed it. To be fully funded, we have an approximately a $12 million shortfall in that full liability. The district has been considering possibly establishing a Section 115 trust to try to reduce some of that liability. And we had a report that was done for that subject. Remind me, did we present that to the board last month? I'm not sure, Chief.
That's a good point. I don't think the full board got that.
Yeah. Well, the point in my bringing it up at this point is that we had a consultant doing some an analysis of our shortfall, if you will. And by the way, probably what 90% of the organizations that are funded through CalPERS have some kind of shortfall. This is not unusual at all. But we had this consultant and made some suggestions as to one things we might do to address that situation. After that recommendation, and because of some of our budget discussions that we'll discuss here later this evening, I just think it is probably a poor time to go forward with doing anything with our CalPERS financing. It is not a problem. We have plenty of money to address it and going forward with it at all. But one further item on that item C, Chief, I do think that in our budget, if I forget to neglect to mention a little bit ago, that there is a savings by prepaying our CalPERS amount due this year. And I would ask that to take the appropriate steps to make that happen. I forget how much. I think it's a $50,000 savings or something like that to make that happen.
Okay.
That would be my CalPERS comments. Chief, did anybody else have any discussion on that at all to Andrew? Okay.
The only question I have on that is if we have any remaining balance in the budget for CalPERS, if we pay it all up front, if there's any balance left over, we don't want to put that towards the principal. Just leave it unspent for the year.
Say it again, please, Steve.
If there ends up being any sort of difference between what we've budgeted and what the final number is.
Oh,
Well, just a difference. If there's
it will become
$50,000
less than what you budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to just hold it what it is, or do you want to put that?
Well, it's a
into-
good question because I have another request that relates to that a little bit ago and a few minutes of the budget. But leave it the way it is frankly, it doesn't make much difference one way or the other.
Okay, I'll just make the lump sum payment.
Yeah. But that's the conclusion as far as I'm concerned of anything we having to do with. In fact, we are due this month or next month from getting an updated report from CalPERS for the year 2021.
Right. Yeah.
And which actually should be very favorable.
Yeah.
The one for a year from now, when we get to 2022, will not be very favorable. We can predict that with some certainty at this point. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say on that, unless.
No, that's,
Okay.
my only understanding is that it almost doesn't matter what we do, we're still on the hook until 2034. We pay the whole amount off right now.
Yeah.
So
Well-
when they give us the whole unfunded liability and a big lump sum, we were to say, here, nothing has changed, other than we might save a little bit of money in interest.
Well, the recommendation that we had from the consultant said that we could be paid up to date by 2034 But that doesn't mean that we would not continue to have to pay.
Right.
That's just getting us up to date, that we just continue till all on kind of a
Oh, yeah, I
negative,
guess that was, this book.
kind of a negative statement, that we will continue to have that liability, which we should. It's an obligation for the district. But we will continue to have that until all the members who are covered are deceased. So that's sometime hopefully in the future to do that. Then changing subject and going on to the budget item, in our new budget, which is item B on our agenda. And, Chief Cox, maybe you can kind of lead off on this discussion.
Yeah, happy to, and kind of give an overview. I think from a kind of flow perspective, not looking at the staff report, but actually looking at the budget number itself. I think the best place to start is just looking at the prior fund balance, which if you look at this, the actual budget spreadsheets themselves, it's a couple pages back right there. There you go. Yeah, right here.
I got it.
Our starting point is really the fact that on July 1, we anticipate our fund balance being $6.6 million for our operating account. So going into whatever revenue we anticipate, it's above and beyond 6.67 million. We took a conservative approach to looking at what the revenue is on the 1021 all the way through to 1831 items. And we're anticipating on the revenue side, essentially $12 million, which takes us to just over $18 million, plus some additional other revenues that we get back, strike teams, plan reviews, the ALS-JPA agreement. So all of that rolled up together gets us to $20.5 million. So essentially the fund balance and all of the revenues for the year, we anticipate the district having $20.5 million for the fiscal year. A couple kind of outliers to think about in this, in the revenue side, is we did continue with ERAF projected at 1.23 million. We all know that there's a lot of kind of churn going on with ERAF and vehicle licensing fee reimbursement to the county and then districts. That I think is just one item to keep an eye on as we go through the year is, are we actually going to get that $1.2 million? But all said, we're looking at $20 million on the revenue side. I say revenue, it's revenue and fund balance. And from that, a budget that includes a projection of actually putting money back into our LAIF account by the end of the year. So actually we've made 2 payments this fiscal year into LAIF, and we're up to about $2.3 million that we've set aside in reserve so far this year. So our reserve in LAIF has gone up. We anticipate at least another $1 million next year, according to this budget, going into LAIF.
Mhm.
We tried to get to 3 million this year. We probably could have, but we are limited when we're moving money from the county to LAIF as to the amount we can do. So we have to do it in several payments. So we'll continue to do that next year as well, to get us over.
That also related to that, Chief, the fact that we did purchase an additional engine this year certainly reduced the amount that we normally would have put into reserves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We had a big capital intensive year.
Yeah.
We had another type 1, another type 3, the SCBA replacements and the radios too. The only other big thing that
Are you done with the revenue?
done with revenue, yeah.
Let me just ask just a couple of questions on this. In looking at this, we're actually, let's see. No, we're indicating a slight increase in the secured and in total, a slight increase in total revenue?
That's correct, yeah, 2% was the conservative estimate we took for 22, 23. And the estimated actuals for this year, I believe those will be a little bit higher once we actually get all the revenue in for June. So it'll probably be a little bit higher, so I think 10.84 is a fairly conservative target.
You know, related to just part of that, this is a nit, but the property tax, actually both of them, the old Point Montera and the Half Moon Bay property tax.
Yeah.
You know, in each of those, they are below what we estimated and what we had budgeted.
Yeah.
And help me understand, because it's based upon the number of homes and various other properties that are there.
Yep.
They don't disappear.
No,
So why would they come in less than the previous year?
so we actually budgeted last year 65,000 for, sorry, 75,000
Yeah,
for the
right.
Point Montera, and we're estimating that we'll be at 68. I'll go back and look and see where the variance is. You know, I think after June, we'll get a much clearer
Yeah,
picture.
I guess that this is just myself, because I had it from memory, I don't recall this, but each year, I think, for a number of years, we have not we have not met what we budgeted for both Point Montera and for Half Moon Bay.
Yeah,
And it just seems though that, you know, it's kind of automatic. In fact, the only thing would happen, it would increase.
right, it'll go up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but if you wouldn't mind.
yeah, that's a good call.
I don't know whether perhaps, you know, negative thinking that perhaps something isn't getting credited on time or put on the books on. I know there's a lag,
Yeah,
and maybe that's what's taking, but that caught my eye. The other question I had is that the Pillow Point Harbor.
Yep.
Have we tried to collect their?
we have, and I believe. Yes, we have. We re-signed that contract with them. I re-signed that.
Yeah.
We re-signed it. The board
So
approved it.
we're gonna get it, it's just not here yet.
Recently.
Yeah, exactly. And we do bill for that.
Okay, let's see where they're. Okay, we've already talked about the prepaying PERS. I'm moving on a little bit on the revenue.
Yeah.
Please continue. Oh, one other thing while I see it. I noticed on the preliminary budget, understandably, that the CAL FIRE contract is under contract, which makes sense.
Right.
But, you know, for years, it's been under, you know, salaries and wages.
Yeah,
And it just makes it a little bit easier if I look for, you know, I wouldn't think, or I don't think the public would think of looking under contract, they'd look under salaries and wages.
yeah,
And if it doesn't make any difference to the process, if you, I would just suggest that if a clarity that it be under salaries and wages.
yeah,
You look under here and it says 0 salaries and wages.
yeah. I can check on that.
It's a net, if it's a problem, don't do it.
Okay, yeah, I'll follow up and see.
Continue on, Chief, when you get a.
Yeah, so on the expense side, and we can go kind of by account section, the 4,000s, we're looking at a little bit less for the year than we did last year, not a major change.
Yeah.
Obviously, the big one in here being the PERS contribution that we pay out, everything else is a little bit more minor. The same goes for the 5,000 series, which is the services and supplies. You know, the large one in here that's going to be different this year is this weed abatement contractor. We've budgeted a larger amount because we think the next 30 lots that we're going to go after, we're going to have to do more work ourselves because they may just be absentee landowners who say, I don't even want the property, do whatever you want. So we do try to recover that through the lien process with the property tax.
But of the 15 we've done?
We've done 15.
Yeah.
This is the vegetation abatement, not the weed abatement.
Yeah.
This is one where we're going with the heavier crews.
Yeah.
We've done 15 next year, or later this
Yeah.
fall, we're looking to do 30.
have we recovered from the 15, or do you know yet?
So it will go on this year's tax roll,
Okay.
because we did it late last year.
Have we had anybody object on those 15?
Yeah, so of the 15, I think we took action on 5.
Oh,
of
that's,
them.
okay.
Yeah, 10 of them did it themselves, 5 we took action on, and then we put it on the tax roll.
All right.
As far as the special district expenses, this is a little, well, and let me back up one more on the 5,000 accounts, because one thing you'll notice on here is, sorry, maybe on the next section. I just want to speak through the LAIF transfers. The LAIF transfer we anticipate making is about $1.4 million next year. So this time next year, having a LAIF fund balance that's 1.4 million more than what we have this year. The piece I wanted to speak to about that is we do have the tools and equipment that we need to purchase for outfitting those fire apparatus. We have in our LAIF accounts reserves for apparatus and tools.
Yep.
We anticipate and we call out pulling down some of that tools and equipment reserve to outfit those apparatus. It's a little bit of a technicality, but it's called out in there to make sure people know we're using that money for that.
Yeah, a little bit later, I'd like to speak specifically to the LEAF accounts, but I understand what you're saying
Okay.
to that. Hey, and this is somewhat off the subject, but under 5321 membership, we joined Fire Departments Association California a year ago. And, you know, as far as I know, I've never seen anything or any benefit from it at all.
Yeah.
Am I missing something?
No, they're not as very active from what I can tell. The Fire District Association of California, the FDAC.
Yeah. But, I would personally, unless somebody objects to that, saying, that's destroying money at an organization that doesn't benefit us.
Yeah, I haven't seen much benefit myself.
No.
It's not like the California Special District
Oh,
Association.
gosh, no.
Yeah.
I would say that, we ought to drop that one.
This is,
Well, not renew it, I guess would be,
this is 5331, the 18.6, is that what you're talking about?
no, yes, 5331.
Thank you.
One of those memberships is Fire District Association California, which we joined a couple of years ago. I've not even seen anything on that, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen a couple really terrible pieces of print copy, but that's about it.
Really? Okay. All right. Moving on.
The 5,000 accounts are, basic services and supplies for the stations, the communication, cellular, computer tools and equipment. It's coming down a little bit based on the 5-year average for next year.
Chief, aren't you being very conservative with fuel, with what's going on?
Yeah, sorry, what number are you looking at?
5416.
Yeah, what we are, and we maybe in our final adoption should look at what the last few months has been and project that out for the year.
Yeah, just an observation, you decided. Go ahead.
54,000 accounts. They are obviously going up a little bit compared to what the estimated actuals are for this year, but they're coming down from what last year's budget actually was. The rest of the 5,000 accounts are pretty straightforward: utilities, insurance, rents and leases, and then as well as the 57,000 series, which are the training and education, which we repeatedly.
Could I ask you, Chief, on 5612?
Yep.
I've asked, not to you, but at some time in the past, I think we've had a vendor for some period of time, and I'm not sure that we've ever actually sent it out to bid. And if I'm wrong, correct me.
You're talking insurance?
Yes.
Yeah, as far as I know, we haven't. We've just continued with the insurance quote we have.
I again, from one of the recent California Special District meetings, I was chatting with somebody regarding insurance. And they had made some sizable savings by putting it out to bid. And I recall that we had not done that. And I would like to ask when it's up to do. I'm not sure what the date is. But
Yeah.
the next time it's up to date, up for renewal.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Just make that note. As far as the contract services, which is the 58,000 series, the big one on here is the CAL FIRE contract. I will say we should put a big asterisk by that right now, because the labor negotiations are going on at the moment.
Yeah.
If all goes well, we should have an answer by July 1 and can
Okay.
bring it into the board.
Yeah.
But that one is probably the biggest variable right now, as to what that looks like moving forward.
But the number, the 99,300,000 is based on the contract.
The current contract.
Yeah, that's.
Yes.
right, Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Which brings up an interesting question. Does our current contract allow for amendments during the contract?
It does.
It does?
Yes.
Yeah,
So if we want to make any changes to staffing, or if there's a contract labor update, then we'll bring it back
Yeah.
under an amendment.
Yeah, I know there's, we have the ability to add and subtract people, but I didn't know in terms of the labor agreement, that is also available. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Fine. It is what it is.
The kind of the more the capital accounts with the 559,000 series, potentially some additional station improvements. These are the minor station improvements that are less than $10,000. These are the ones where a window breaks or something needs to happen. It's fairly minor. And then the apparatus and equipment less than 10,000. This is where, we're going to buy the tools and equipment to outfit those engines.
Yeah.
Nothing on that engine beyond the extrication equipment costs more than $10,000 in a single unit, so it stays under this account. Again, radios, it's all your small tools and equipment. This is just a little elevated this year because of those new apparatus needing to be outfitted. And then the station and structure improvements more than 10,000. We budgeted in here 150,000 for 40. Just anticipating the plans coming back for the landscaping.
Yeah.
And if we do want to move forward with that, we'll have it.
On that item, Chief, could I ask that in that item that you also include landscaping improvements on Station 41?
Yep.
Something to address that piece of land on the end there that we can do.
Yep, absolutely.
That we can do, and I emphasize the we.
Right. Sorry.
Okay.
That's 44. The only one thing that we also have kind of called out in here is 25,000 for Station 44. And the issue that we're going to have is when we get these new apparatus, the header at 44 on the north side, the garage door header.
Yeah.
If we're still a few years away from building a new station, we're going to have to raise that header up, 6 to 8 inches to get that reserve engine in and out of there.
It's been raised before. Won't be the first time.
Raise the roof on it. But that was just the anticipation of that.
And by the way, I see that you did include 25,000 for Station 41, so you already have that in there.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. As far as the 73,000, this is kind of the fixed asset inventory that we carry. This is apparatus and big stuff. The only major ones in here, beyond furniture, radios, the stuff that is fairly consistent, is the $250,000 for vehicles. And that's for those staff vehicles that we have on order, but we haven't paid for yet. We don't pay for them until we take delivery of them.
Yeah.
So they're just called out in here for next year. So with all of that together, we get to a final I'm sorry, last, but most importantly, under 7403, which is land and structures.
Yep.
We are looking at earmarking 2 million for the architecture phase of 44. We should have a presentation or a final site. They're citing it right now. We've gone back and forth from land and structures about the viability of moving to the architecture phase. They can get it on there.
Yeah.
They can build the program we need. It's whether we want to go with a drive-through apparatus bay or not. It's extremely tight trying to get in there with a drive-through apparatus. So that'll be the next lane.
How critical is drive-through apparatus?
On inclines, it's important if the property's not flat, but if their plan is going to be to flatten that property, then it will not be.
Yeah, just curious.
Yeah. It's good for the driver, obviously, but.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine.
But that's 2 million we called out there. The current rate, they say earmark 10% for the architecture and engineering phase. So 20 is probably overly conservative because the station hopefully won't be 20 million.
Yeah.
But 2 million should get us that architecture and engineering.
I didn't, maybe this is analysis paralysis, but in square footage on that design that we had back from the consultant.
Yeah.
Times a certain dollar amount.
Yeah.
What does it amount to do?
Whew, I have to go back to him. I was on.
Just out of curiosity, you took 41
Yeah,
and the square footage time 1,000
yeah,
and change it compared to the 44.
Yeah.
Be interested to see what the difference might be to. And it's curiosity because I anticipate, certainly a sizable increase, but.
I think the target is somewhere between 15 to 20 million. On 44.
Yeah.
The actual amount.
The actual
Not
amount,
what
the
we're
overall
budgeting
amount.
for, not what our pipe dream is.
Yeah.
So 41 came in at 13.5, 13.9, whatever, by the time we finished paying all of the risk.
Yeah.
And now 44, which theoretically will be a smaller station.
Yeah.
Will be 20.
Don't quote me on it, but that's what the range is.
No, I understand.
Yeah, 15 to 20.
I get it, I get it.
Yeah, it's gonna be more for less essentially.
Yeah, right. I got it, thank you.
Well, I'll add to that we fortunately are very fortunate to be in a reasonably good position to address that. I mean, I think many locations and stations would not have the background
absolutely.
reserves to
Absolutely,
at least pay attention to it.
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So for that, when you take all of the expenses, expenses come out to 8.546. Just remember, I'm considering that 1.4 million that's going into reserves as an expense on the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And I'm also taking into consideration that the fund balance coming into it is a revenue. So when you include those both, if you strip those out, the numbers are much more realistic, but when you put it all together, it's 18.46.
Unfortunately, got it.
And that will leave us with a $2 million fund balance, which is what we keep in that operating fund, is at least a $2 million floor.
Okay. Very good. That's let me do you have some questions, Jake?
No, we're good, we're good,
I
thank
can
you.
mention a couple of things, Chief, that welcome your comments on. First of all, we're in excellent financial condition and we're well managed thanks to your efforts and staff to go through this thing. There's no question about it. The excellent finances we've enjoyed during the past year allowed us to buy an additional engine, well before we needed, but it was lucky that we did because of the condition and so forth. I think the 22 revenues, I understand with the inflation and some of the uncertainty in the economy are problematic, but I do think it's a very conservative estimate, the 2% to do that, but that's, that's a couple of other things though that I think that you mentioned in here without going back, and I'd like to ask you to address it if possible. One is the 75% having salaries and benefits equal no more than 75% of our total budget. And it was, when it was put into place, and it's not any kind of an accountant's tool or anything else. It's a local thing that we put in to address a problem that we had for a number of years, and we couldn't buy enough gasoline for the engine for a while. But so it's strictly local, and we can do what we want. And what is proposed in here, 78% as opposed to 75, and you addressed it in there. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. But you know, I guess that in my mind, it is one other point. That's 75%. We will achieve that at the end of the year because of the CAL FIRE steps and the way you do it. There's no question that we're going to do that, barring, you know, whatever happens. But I think the 75% to me is a planning tool. It has in the past, not recent past, but in the past, it instilled a certain discipline on us that we had not had for a long time. And my request is that as you move forward towards the final budget and get the last things is, do you take a look at, if you will, at what can be done reasonably, not, you know, just to, but reasonably, that makes some sense to get it to 75%.
Yep.
And whether that's expenses, budget, or revenue, whatever you want, it would be my request that you, I just think it has some discipline action to it that you could say, yeah, we've made it again, we've done what it is. And it's no big deal, you know, we will make it, and we'll have plenty of money to buy engines and other capital equipment, but that's my request on that.
So just to clarifying on that, 75% that the salaries will not be 75%.
Salaries and benefits.
Salaries will not be, and benefits being the current CalPERS liability or not?
Yeah, but yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not to be more than 75% of all of the total budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, use some judgment. If you tell me it's, you know, ridiculous, I accept that.
No, I just wanted to make sure I was getting the verbiage right.
Okay.
When you say, excuse me, when you say the current CalPERS liability, are you speaking about this what we're talking about?
What did I say?
You said the current CalPERS liability has got to be included to keep it under
No.
75%. And
I was saying, let me back up.
yeah,
Yeah, the CalPERS. I get CalPERS.
right.
Yeah, but if you take the category salaries and benefits,
Got it.
whatever's in that.
Yeah.
Including CAL FIRE's contract.
Got
Right, okay,
That's-
that's what I was, you said CalPERS, and I said.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That,
okay.
you had me for a second.
The other comments, I'll just go through a couple others. From my point of view, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the thing, because of the uncertainty of ERAF, not for this year, but for subsequent year, 2024, 24, you know, certainly I think that it would be behoove us to, you know, be reasonably conservative this year and anticipate what's going on, particularly with the, whatever the heck 44 is going to cost us and so forth. And as an aside, I think we're going to get a little bit more active, involved in the policy and political aspect of that in some fashion, but that's a somewhat unrelated, related item. But that's the thing. The other item that I wanted to prepay for this. Okay. The other item that I'd like to address, though, under the budget, gee, I'm skipping around, but here's another one, is this whole business of the internal service funds. And let me, the reason, in the past, we had a heck of a time. We had reserves, and they were big reserves. And there was a dispute in the board as to, you know, do you use it for a new engine, or do you use it for a new machine, or, you know, all kind of things. And it became very unwieldy. And we actually hired an outside consultant who subsequently became the finance director for the city to say, you know, how do we fix this? And they introduced us to these internal service funds and how they work. And basically, what it is that rather than putting any kind of expenses or capital expenses in your regular operating budget, you have, and I don't know if you've probably seen this, but I'm going to deal with you if you will, a separate portion of the budget is the internal service fund. And what it is, and this happens to be, as an example from the 2018 budget. But if you look at this particular thing, and I know you can't read it and so forth, but it simply says very simple, apparatus replacement and internal service fund. This is one of them that we the board said, we want to have a reserve for apparatus to get this type of thing. And then it very simply says that what is the operating amount we have in that fund to begin with, to do it, and so forth. And then that's it today. And then it has about expenses. And then this particular one, it says vehicle replacement, the ladder truck. And it says that's going to cost us $1 million. So we took that out. So our total capital expenditure was $1 million. And we subtracted that from the balance we had in, obviously. And we came up with what we would have from a budget point of view at the end of the year. And we did the same for the operations, for tools and equipment and all. But it makes it so simple to look at as part of the budget. And when you look at it, if you look at equipment and tools, same thing. This particular area, this particular year, we had a going forward budget of 1.2. We decided we're going to spend, you decided we're going to spend 194,000, reducing it what it is at the end of the year. So, I just think the clarity of it seems to me to be an advantage, not only to the board, but for the public looking at this thing. They know what we're going to do, what we're planning on doing. Even though the internal funds today are in LAIF, they don't have to be. They just happen to be there to do it. I mean, you could have an internal service fund at the county if you chose to do so, to do that type of thing. The other related subject to this is that we have $2 million operating fund in the county. And when you look at the spreadsheets that we have, to somebody picking it up the first time, they say, what the heck is this? Right? They get $2 million in here. I would suggest or ask that you take a look at taking that $2 million operating fund and put it into an internal service fund. And the internal service fund, what it would amount to is that you'd start out with $2 million, and we don't plan, I don't believe, to use any of that. So it's, it's in there, no plans to take it out. At the end of the year, it's going to be $2 million. And it's all on one easy page to take care of it. And I don't know whether, if for some reason other dealing with Felton or whatever the computer programs are doing makes it awkward or difficult to do this, but I would request you really take a look at using the internal service fund mechanism to address those items, the 4 or 5 items that we currently have in LAIF.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. What else on the budget?
That's all the big pieces for me. I think the big question is going to be the CAL FIRE contract and what that looks like in the near future.
In fact, you addressed the last item on our agenda, the priorities from my point of view, if you will, is the CAL FIRE contract, Station 44.
Yeah.
So certainly the upfront to that I'm aware of. Yeah.
Do you want to see that internal services fund for the final budget broken out separately?
Yeah, I'd like to, yeah, and if even between there, if there's some between now and September, if there's a draft that we might want to talk about, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
And maybe there's something that from a CPA point of view that they might have some comment whether that is appropriate or not. I can't imagine, because when we originally did it, we had a CPA take a look at it and see whether does this meet the standards and all the other types of things, and it did. There was no problem.
Right.
But it certainly clarified the discussion among the board as to what we're going to put money into. We made a vote as to what we're going to put it there, and even though it's fungible, it was a restriction is what we expected to spend it on, what category to spend it on.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's fine. I'll talk, we'll get some clarity on that, even if we have to come up with.
Okay. you have the old budget.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, and take a look at the ones that say that, like this one here, and see it. It's not that difficult.
Yeah.
I guess the other item from a finance committee is discuss finances. We have an auditor's report from for the year 2021 to
20/21.
yeah.
Yes.
And the great news, it's a public document, it's available to anybody to look through, who has trouble speaking. They can go through that, but from my point of view, it's unqualified.
Yeah.
Which means that there's no questions, everything is fine, and at least as far as I know, it's at least 15 years of straight unqualified budget audits, so that is a real feather in the cap to the staff and to the community. With that, without objection, we are adjourned,
Sounds good.
okay?
Excellent.
And